Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to the Lord of the Rings adventure card game. It's a really long title, I suppose, but there's probably so many different things with Lord of the Rings in the name, it makes sense that the title would have to be that long. It reckons back to, like, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure versus the action adventure games, where they made two or three different versions of games around Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Thus, they had to have these long subtitles. Let's see. So we're doing Quest 2, and in the last recording, we made this new deck. So this is basically the first time I've actually tried to make a deck. I copied the Explorer's deck and changed them heroes to get different rewards for that, but this power deck is effectively a from scratch concept of deck building, and since this is a deck building game, I probably should have built a lot more decks. Although, in fairness, there really aren't that many cards or that many strategies compared to something like Yu-Gi-Oh, which has been around for 25 years and has 10,000 plus cards that synergize in many different ways, or Magic the Gathering is a similar situation. So I have a real hard time even justifying making another deck. It just seems like it would be a waste of time, and hopefully we don't lose with this custom deck. So we're still going forward in a story that definitely feels like it's still just The Hobbit. It's still dealing with Bilbo as a character, and if anything, it seems like we were fighting wolves now, but now perhaps we'll fight some goblins instead. And we have a wizard, Radagast the Brown, as a character, which it all seems kind of repetitive, as it were. At a certain level, I guess if the Lord of the Rings series had been just a collection of even 6 books to be more in line with like the Harry Potter series. I don't really know if the Harry Potter series is 6 books, but around there. It might make a little bit more sense, particularly those early Harry Potter books, which were fairly short. Effectively, every Harry Potter episode is, or every book is, there's a bad guy. At the end, the bad guy turns out to be Voldemort, or being led by Voldemort, and Harry Potter defeats them, and that just gets repeated in almost every story, with more details differentiating the different books. If they'd gone down that route, if Tolkien had gone down that route, and there had been a series of Middle-earth books, each where there was always a wizard who shows up, there's always a hobbit or somewhat weak character, doesn't have to really be a hobbit, and there's always a bad guy, and then the bad guy turns out to be a former like general under Sauron, and it built up towards Sauron showing up in the final book. That would have been probably more in line with what you would expect these days to try and make a whole series for it. And I have to say too, I'm assuming Tolkien is British, and I'm just going to throw out this tinfoil hat theory and leave it there. It often, with all of the themes of slavery in these stories and kidnapping and such, it definitely feels like this is a story that is heavily inspired or coded to kind of hide the fact that it is more of a story of an escaped slave. I could see where a British person might try to criticize the United States for still having slaves, although the British Empire had slaves for a lot longer. I think they did, at least. But so he would encode it in fantasy otherwise. But yeah, you definitely can feel some influence or of what would have been going around during Tolkien's life during this time, that there would be stories inspiring that or similar to that. But I do have to kind of applaud Tolkien for putting it in the fantasy realm, because Huckleberry Finn, in comparison, which is also a story with an escaping slave and themes of, or Roots, the actual book, those are books that are a little too heavy and hit a little too close to home for most people to want to read them. And those are books that are really only relevant because they are part of required reading in schools. If someone was left up to their own devices, they probably would not opt to read Roots or Huckleberry Finn or similar books. To Kill a Mockingbird too. Those kinds of books. You probably wouldn't opt for that. Whereas people will definitely opt to read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, thinking, at least on the surface evaluation, that it is just a fantasy story.
Ulfthek hurries his soldiers along as they whip the terrified villagers into quickening their pace. He looks them over as they run.
Too scrawny,
he mutters to himself. But the mouth of Dol Guldur demands more prisoners, so more prisoners he will provide. Ulfthek fears little, and even if he did fear something, he would not show it in front of his orcs. Still, the Master's dark servant makes him nervous, and the Master himself is terrifying. Both want more prisoners, no matter the cost. Ulfthek knows he hasn't won any special favors from his recent successors. He won't spare the whip to meet their demands. Ulfthek glances back down the trail. Master had warned that he must cover his tracks, lest their efforts be discovered. Ulfthek left some goblin wretches behind to burn the village. With luck, the chaos and damage will obscure their path to the old dwarf mine, where this latest catch join the rest.
There's some interesting foreshadowing that may or may not get resolved here, that Middle-earth is a world that has a lot of secrets buried underneath it. I don't think anything really gets revealed from that at all, though. For all I know, they're getting all these slaves to dig in mines just to get raw resources, or to just look for the One Ring. With a name like Middle-earth, it would be interesting if there was an Upper Earth and a Lower Earth. But actually, for as much as the Middle-earth map is described and shown, there's still a lot of lack of detail that's written as far as what would be north, south, east, or west of the Middle-earth area. Anyways, again, if Tolkien maybe had lived longer or written more, or if it had been licensed out to other people, you would expect that there would be like fan stories that became popular enough to become potentially canon. If Lord of the Rings had come out in its height of popularity in, say, 2020 is a good time, then almost certainly you would have seen something like a Disney making Marvel series of movies, with each character potentially getting their 2-hour movie and going into a whole new world and in a whole new area, and it would just keep on going and keep on going. Although, in all fairness, that's not really what happened with the Harry Potter books either, so I probably am wrong. Depends on who's in charge. If Disney was in charge, yes, that would have happened. If Warner Brothers was in charge, like they were, of the Harry Potter movies, then you have just the Harry Potter movies, and then 2 Fantastic Beasts movies. I think there was only 2 of them that have been made so far, and those are not anywhere as popular in the movie form or in their book form. arguably the difference there too is though Harry Potter focuses in the title alone around Harry Potter. So once you get away from that main character that was so heavily the main protagonist, you can't tell any other stories, whereas the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stories are much more varied and have a lot more characters. Even though Bilbo and Frodo would be the main protagonists of the two books.
Despite his seemingly advanced age, the wizard maintains a quick pace that you're hard-pressed to match. The path he cuts through the dense forest gives way suddenly to a large clearing and a village beyond. But the village is aflame. As screams erupt inside the buildings, you see creatures darting to and fro between the ramshackled structures, torches in hand. They giggle in glee as the buildings alight.
Turn to the fires!
Radagast calls to you. He darts past the village, disappearing into the clouds of smoke. One of your companions spies a water trough in the middle of town. You must act quickly if you hope to douse the flames and save those who are trapped inside.
Again, we're still getting the two perspective stories, although weirdly, this time it seems like we got the bad guy's story first, and then the good guy's story. This is a slightly less detailed depiction, so it's all in shadow. But the art is only moderately connected in similarity when we see it. It does seem to be fairly varied, and it's nice to see art, but it's not really showing us much when we only get one picture. I also have to question what makes a wizard in Middle-earth, that a wizard cannot put out flames. Maybe there's a very limited amount of spells and things Radagast can do, but it would seem like you could call down the rains from the sky and put out fire, or call upon the wind, or control the fire directly with pyromancy, even shoot the earth up and cover and douse the fire. If you can't control even a single natural element to put out fire, then can he only really control maybe animals?
The kingdom of all shall be renewed.
My heart warns me that the pursuit is now swift behind us.
What about second breakfast?
Okay, so we have a completely different deck now. Vanquish plus guard, upkeep, return this guy after he's exhaust a minion, +1 threat when using attack, or I don't know why I would have picked this character. This seems like a bad character to have. Let's just stick with that though. So we're supposed to put out the fires, which store full power to raging fire at the end of each turn, so we have to figure out a way to put out the fires. This revenge here will give us 1 bucket of water. If we destroy the water trough, meanwhile fighting this guy, and this guy doesn't seem like that really matters. Apply 2 progress per player to every raging fire, and location specific. So that seems like that would just work if I have one more thing in play and then put all of these things here. Whoops. That was not useful. And that does put us in a different position. Certainly. Okay. Let's try this again. Hit that. Hit that.
Make a good many things yet.
Gain 1 for each threat meter. Achieve restore 1 health to a Hobbit hero. So I should gain something +1 for each of these. It seems like I would gain 29. That didn't happen. I don't know what that did at all.
The enemy is upon us.
Okay, so we gained 1 for each one the threat meter gains. Alright. I get that. That makes sense.
For my people!
Let's not let this character die completely. See, I think this is still in defense mode. Okay. Can't play this. Can play water bucket. So apply 3 progress per player. So wouldn't 1 water bucket do 9? No. Doesn't seem like it would.
The wounds of this weapon are beyond my skill to heal.
The Shire!
Achieve gives it 1 health. I like this character, Pippin, but I've already lost 1 character, so there's basically nothing I can do here. I've already lost. And see, I feel like this is the delicate balance that you're going to run into as a problem. Even trying to deck build. This is supposed to be a deck building game. I don't think I'm wrong about that. But at the core of it, either I over-focused on this and really just needed to fight enemies and build up my team, or I have just failed because I picked the wrong deck.
Of their courage assault.
So let's start over again with the starter deck.
I will go and look on the halls echoes of Durin.
So, yeah. And there may have been a case, really, that I just had a more technical deck build made up. And because I had that more technical deck build made up, there really wasn't a lot of room for focusing on the fundamentals of attacking and defending.
For Rivendell!
Let's see. +1 every time you play a card. Low on supplies. This is gonna suck. Apply 3 progress per player to range fire. Oh, so that means I would need to be playing co-op for it to do 2, not per hero or ally. Which that's what I was thinking it was hero and ally.
He cannot stand alone.
And then an extra threat every time I do something. So how valuable is it to potentially do this? To potentially do this. In the turn. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then can we actually defeat anybody? See, weirdly, it does just kind of come down to controlling the enemies way more than it comes down to doing the thing you actually would want to do. Unless I can convince Sauron to not summon a bunch of enemies next turn, you're slowly increasing your problem here. Slowly increasing your threat level. I think the move probably is to do this. 2 progress points per player to each ranging fire. But you kind of need to set that up too. Well, I guess you play this.
Charge!
Guess you do this.
Rivendell!
And that gives us 2 water buckets. Then we power that. And then what if we were to use that and power that? Okay. So then we activate Cleansing Rain. And we just don't have enough resources for anything here. So we've screwed up. Like, best case scenario, I can't do much of anything. I can try and get rid of that and try and get rid of that. But then you're in the turn. This fully restores, this fully restores. So that whole Cleansing Rain was pointless without doing the math. Then Question of Will reduces everything down severely. So I can play as much board control as I might want to.
He cannot stand alone!
For Rivendell!
How may I serve?
Let's see. So now we're back to 2 water buckets, which might work later. But you're just ending, and there goes your threat level higher and higher, and then. And I get the general idea here that this is supposed to be a big,
For Rivendell!
fast-paced challenge.
I serve no man!
Okay.
Nothing passes unnoticed.
We're slowly setting up for a potential next round. Let's see, what does this do? Do 2 damage to 1 random. Mirror of Sauron has more cards in play that won't even activate. Gain another water bucket. That is a possibility, but probably not necessary. But I don't think this guy's even gonna throw any enemies at me, so let's just do that. Alright.
He cannot stand alone!
For Rivendell!
The next question, I guess, would come down to whether we want to keep our energy. Complete this goal for this location. Travel now to avoid the looming threat. Alright. Do we want to play anything else? No. So let's just travel. And I guess we'll have to discard 2 cards. Which, drawing 2 cards is probably not terrible to get rid of. And Surge is probably not terrible to get rid of. So it seems like you only get to keep 3 per round.
As you douse the last of the flames, a soot-covered Radagast reappears with a handful of small children and some elders who hid them.
Goblins?
The strange old man shouts before coughing up ash.
This close to Roscabel? Unthinkable! And they've taken most of the villagers prisoner. I'll tend to this lot. You must find and rescue the others.
The brown wizard stares at you expectantly, eyes gleaming.
Off with you now! Those villagers won't rescue themselves.
He points to the edge of the clearing, revealing a faint trail that leads to the northeast. Thanks to Radagast's aid, you can make out the subtle signs of a group being led away, but following the trail won't be easy. With a nod to your companions, you head down the meager track. Hopefully the villagers have not gotten far. You dread the thought of rushing headlong once more into the dark forest of Mirkwood. There are things in that forest, beyond spiders and orcs, and you have no wish to blunder into them.
So, I assume this isn't Radagast, but it really should be, if that's the main character you're talking about, or the first character mentioned. So we've set ourselves up for this next sequence, but we are kind of in a bad position. As far as we only have 11 more moves we can make for this entire run. Pursue the orc bands that sacked it, do not lose the trail. So bolster. Every end you lose a progress for that, for each enemy in play. And then, what does that say? At 0, your quest fails. It's 0 power. So we have to just keep hitting this to bolster the trail. And noticeably, we lost the water buckets. We have the same 3 cards. We have the same resources from the previous round. And arguably, I would think you could control things a lot better and create a better experience for everybody involved if there was a default resetting between each game, each round. So you always started with a new 3 cards and 5 resources and just your heroes in play to balance things out. Because otherwise you create a scenario like this run where things could have gone fairly bad in that first round, and then you're going to be behind the curve for everything else. Let's see, as far as enemies go, we have orcs. Gets 1 resource to Sauron when this guy attacks, and then this one has guard. Meanwhile, guess if this guy doesn't want to attack, we can attack ourselves. Guess the best question here is just to ask, how do we go about attacking something? Now, weirdly, I don't feel like if I get this to 20, I immediately win. So that is a consideration, certainly, to think about. Okay. So that won't do anything. Deal 1 damage to every ally. Well, that kills 1 ally.
For Rivendell! Yeah, howdy hey!
Restore 2 health to 1 creature. Another one with guard.
My lord Gallifrey!
Okay. Killing that. Probably your best bet there. He's just used every card and every resource he has. I think he stole one of my items. So this guy won't heal anymore. We could kill a character, which probably benefits you more than anything. And so that lost only 1 progress because of discard every attachment card in each player's hand. That's probably fine. I don't think I have had any attachment cards. Not too far away from bringing out Gandalf, and that might just make a lot of sense to wait 1 turn and do that. Let's see, you hit that, and you get to 15. And I kind of feel like what's going to turn out to be the case, just go ahead and show that, is that this will just hit 20 and stay at 20.
He cannot stand alone!
There.
Ineffable or enfeeble. I guess that was enfeeble.
My axe swings too.
So you've completed this goal of the location, so you did have to get up to 20. Okay. So then we just put this in guard mode, and put this in guard mode, and I don't think there's anything else you can play or would want to play unless I wanted to replace a character or try and heal a character. I mean, I guess I could bring that guy out, but let's not. Now we have 4 cards, and it doesn't ask me to get rid of a card.
Ulfthek arrives at last with his vanguard at the
So I
doors of
really
Rivendell.
don't understand the rules.
The dwarves mined out this place many centuries ago. Abandoned and forgotten long since, it is the perfect place from which to manage his operation. The Orc chieftain orders the prisoners to be taken to the cells in the lower depths, there to await transfer to Dol Guldur. With that out of the way, he calls to Thog, one of his trusted lieutenants. Trust being a relative term amongst orcs.
I got a job for you.
Ulfthek tells the huge orc warrior.
Someone is on our trail. I can smell them. I don't like being followed. Take some lads to greet them.
Thog smiles, hefting the oversized cleaver he uses for a weapon. He loves swinging it and looks forward to the work.
You boys,
He shouts to a cluster of orcs milling about.
come with me. It's time for us to chop.
They've announced several Lord of the Rings games that potentially could come out or have come out recently. One of them is a dwarven kind of dungeon keeper style game where the dwarves are going to be underground and digging and mining as part of their gameplay loop. I don't know if they've really announced that many games, though. Maybe 3 or 4.
It isn't
on
easy,
top of some
but he
TV
managed to
shows.
follow the orcs' trail.
Or at least
Kept
one
up an
TV show.
astonishing pace, considering they were herding prisoners
And
along.
new movies.
The path leads
They're
towards
gonna
the
try and do
mountains of
that.
Mirkwood, which loom black and foreboding over you. The dense trees thin until you reach the edge of a clearing before a hill, into which is carved a doorway of dwarven design. From the look of it, this must have been a small mine that has long since been emptied and abandoned. The faint signs of the Orc's passage leads to the entrance. The air here is still, blanketed with a strange hush. It's much too quiet to be anything but a trap. Someone, or something, awaits your approach. Alas, before you can take action, a horn rings out, joined by several others. Orcs burst from cover all around, beating their chests as they form a ring around your party. Then a huge orc steps forth. With a massive cleaver in his hands and a gleam in his eye, he urges his fellows to attack.
It does bring about an interesting question here, as I'm barely paying attention to the story, as to what they are mining if these are abandoned mines by the dwarves. So clearly whatever the dwarves were looking for as a resource is not what the orcs are looking for as a resource. And for a world like Middle-earth, where it seems like there's very likely dwarf tunnels under the entire surface, just in every location, you would think using the underground mines as potential staging grounds for attacks to just come up from underground and attack cities would be a good strategy and plan. Or, even better, why even attack the cities when you could put, say, explosives and bombs under the city and just explode it into the ground, cave it in, sinkhole. So our final encounter is to defeat Thog. We have 9 moves to do it. He has a block. Upkeep removes guard from every character. So that sucks. And at the end, each one of these horn blowers will refill 1 health. So that's gonna really suck. Do we have anything here that could help us? This interface is still pretty rough. 1 minion gaining fleeting. Each player draws 1 card for each enemy in play, limit 3. Okay. Who do we want to even protect or keep alive? Okay. We can bring out Gandalf, not Ganondorf. I'm thinking more Legend of Zelda. Let's just go ahead and Nope. That won't do anything, so it's not really worth playing. We could deal 3 damage. Maybe win that way. I guess the question really is just going to come down to this guy has block. So the only thing that will do any damage to him is this, 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 and this. And so you subtract 1 from that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can do 5 damage to him, he'll get 4 damage back at this point. So it totally makes sense to kill the Hornblowers. Deal 1 damage. There's kind of no point in even bringing anything out that isn't going to do at least 2 damage.
My axe swings too.
Oh, my lad.
Could do sneak attack. See how that goes. Sneak attack proved itself to be fairly useless. Now you're in a weird position here where it's not worth it to might as well just use the power since you can't do anything else. Store 2 health with a 0 attack. Go ahead and replace that.
My eyes see everything.
Let's go ahead and kill that. I guess that's the right move. And then go ahead and try and kill that. I'm just gonna heal my hero. Okay. Let's go ahead and kill this one.
Oh, my lad.
Weirdly, it seems like we get a sneak attack each turn.
Be still, for the sun is climbing.
Okay. Draw 1 card, increase by the card's cost. I'm gonna be weak from exhaustion in this next turn. So we can start to weaken this guy now. And so we should do that.
Charge!
Should we kill this character or should we focus on this one. It's probably better to kill the character. So I should be able to win here this turn. Grant +1 resource cost to each card this turn, which really shouldn't matter. So we should just be able to straight up attack. Now this does create still a problem in that this character doesn't really do anything, so we can use her for defense. 1 damage there, 1 damage there, 1 damage there, 2 damage here. Playing this for 1 cost doesn't matter. We don't really have room to do anything else. I could do this. Yeah, come to think of it, if I'd put the weapon on this character and then used his ability, then I could have won this turn.
He cannot stand alone.
But no such luck. We have 3 more turns. We're gonna win really at the last second here. In fact, if he could do anything to raise my fate even a little bit, I would be doomed. Or raise my threat a little bit.
Much as you wish
I
to
would have
rest
been
after
doomed.
dispatching the Great Orc, there's little time to linger. After examining the area around the hill carefully, you confirm that the trail you've been following leads directly into the mine. You must explore its depths if you are to abide the strange wizard's behest and rescue the villagers. Shaking off fatigue, you light torches and prepare to enter. The ancient door that once sealed the mine has long since been broken and lays to the side in 2 great pieces. You have no idea what perils you will face within, yet you have no choice but to enter this place and find out.
And so we end on a cliffhanger. And then we get to this awkward, unfinished, quiet section with no music playing at all. We get 1,000 completion of fellowship points. We've unlocked this. I don't know, for the first completion, I guess we've unlocked those cards. We completed the quest with every hero at 50% or more health. We defeated Thog without restoring any health. We played 6 event cards for each player, and we avoided allowing tracking the enemy to fall below its starting value. We did not resolve 2 raging fires in 1 round, which I have no idea how you could do that without building a very custom deck and potentially not getting the rest of this done. Yep. It seems like you would be very lucky to be able to make a deck that could get all of this done. And even if you could get all of this done, it's going to get you 1,000 fellowship points, which isn't that much, and it would be very time consuming. We get 1,500 points for playing with 3 new characters. Yeah. And so mostly what we have learned from this quest is to not try and do deck building in a deck building game it's gone that poorly. Yep. Storyline wise, it does seem like we're just going to keep going into the cave section, at least for this next quest. Meanwhile, we are slightly over the 30,000 fellowship points, but there's really no reason why you would ever choose to purchase any of this customization first. Like, even though I did do exactly that, buying some of these emotes, which are utterly valueless. We haven't unlocked any more card backs. I don't think we've unlocked any more than the original 4 starter decks from the tutorial, and we definitely aren't really unlocking a lot of cards in general. It still feels very crazy that you don't get to play a Sauron. It definitely feels like a Sauron deck, even if it was somewhat weakened. A bad guy's deck of some sort would make some sense. And I don't think that inherently would break the concept. If anything, that's probably why this card game doesn't really work as well. It is too tied into the idea that the forces of good will always fight against the forces of evil, and at no point would they cross over. Put this in another fantasy setting, it is way more interesting potentially to make a card game around Spider-Man fighting alongside Doctor Doom or Venom or any of the other bad guys of the Marvel Universe than it is to say one player must always be the good guys and one player must always be the bad guys in the Marvel card game. Particularly when you think about the fact that almost every bad guy is written to lose and have specific weaknesses, so they do lose to the good guys. You really wouldn't even have that big of an issue in the Tolkien universe, because there is a real feeling that Sauron and his forces could win against the forces of good. So mixing and matching the two, while it would break canon, it would open the realm up a lot more. But even in like a tutorial or quick play skirmish, you're totally separated from that, which I find that annoying. Like, you could definitely balance the evil characters, the goblins, the wolves, the spiders, down to having not very complicated styles of gameplay around them, that they by default always have like one more health and one more attack, but they don't tend to have effects, or they have a high cost that you have to overcome for something with an effect. Anyways, that's one more quest. We're making very slow progress here. It's taking me 2 or 3 hour breaks for every 1 hour of gameplay that I make on this. But we are slowly making progress. That's going to be it for this recording. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.